I want you to imagine just for a second losing everything that defines your future.
Yeah, that's a heavy thought right out of the gate.
It is, right.
Yeah.
But imagine the person you built your entire life around is just uh, suddenly gone.
Completely devastating.
But instead of breaking or, even getting a moment to process that grief, you are suddenly handed the keys to an entire family's survival.
Just zero time to mourn.
Exactly. And in that situation, how much of yourself, your own security, would you sacrifice to keep that family's pride intact?
It really forces you to look at human resilience, doesn't it? How we process sudden loss when the world around us just refuses to start moving.
It really does. Welcome to today's deep dive, everyone. Before we get into the weeds of this really fascinating topic, I have a quick favor to ask you.
Always good to get that out of the way.
Right. If you're finding value in these discussions, taking a second to humbly subscribe to the Simplified Summary YouTube channel really helps us keep this going for you.
It makes a huge difference.
It really does. So please like the video and share your valuable comments down below as we go along.
We love reading those.
We do. So for our mission today, we are exploring a single, incredibly powerful story. It's titled Swamini.
Which roughly translates to the mistress.
Right, or the female head of a household.
Yeah.
And this was written by the legendary writer Munshi Premchand, extracted from his famous Mansarovar collection.
Just for rich, brilliant collection.
Absolutely. Our focus today is to unpack this specific story to really look at how a young widow navigates power, sacrifice, and the incredibly complex family dynamics of a rural Indian household.
Especially during a time of massive social transition.
Exactly. And to help us do that, I've got our resident expert here to analyze the underlying social and psychological themes of the story.
I'm very excited for this one. Premchand is he's a master at using small, intimate domestic moments to illustrate massive societal shifts.
He really is. So let's jump right into the narrative. It begins with this tragic catalyst.
It's a very striking opening image.
It is. We have this aging father, Shivdas, and he physically throws the household pantry keys down in front of his daughter-in-law, Rampiyari.
Just tosses them right on the floor.
Yeah, and with tear-filled eyes, he tells her that the responsibility of the entire household is now hers.
That physical throwing of the keys is such a heavy gesture.
How so?
Well, in a traditional Indian joint family, the keys to the pantry and the safe are the ultimate symbols of authority. They're usually tucked right into the sari of the matriarch.
Oh.
So by tossing them to his daughter-in-law, Shivdas is essentially transferring the entire weight of the family's survival onto her shoulders.
And the context of that transfer makes it even heavier.
Right.
Because, Shivdas laments that God couldn't bear his happiness.
Right.
Which is why his young son, Rampiyari's husband, Birju, was snatched away.
It's just a completely devastating, sudden loss for all of them.
It is. And Shivdas declares that he will now have to handle Birju's grueling farm labor himself, even though he's an aging man, but Rampiyari must manage the home.
You see, the agrarian lifestyle they're a part of, it just demands constant labor. There's no pause button for mourning.
The crops still need tending.
Exactly. The livestock needs to be fed. Shivdas returning to the fields is a massive physical burden, but the reality of their survival dictates he has literally no other choice.
And Rampiyari doesn't have a choice either.
Yeah.
There's this deeply poignant detail right after those keys hit the floor.
A tobacco request.
Yes. Rampiyari's grief is at its absolute peak, but it's instantly interrupted when Shivdas asks for a single penny to buy tobacco.
He just asks her for money right there.
Right then and there. And she wipes her tears, stands up, and immediately goes to the pantry, fulfilling her new role.
That request might seem trivial to us, but it acts as a grounding mechanism. It pulls her completely out of her internal grief and forces her into the external reality of her new position.
Which brings us to the title, right?
Yeah.
Swamini.
Exactly. Handing over those keys is a literal and symbolic transfer of power. Traditionally, a young widow in this setting could so easily be marginalized.
Pushed aside.
Yes, pitied, or viewed as a burden. But this tragedy thrusts her into the position of the ultimate decision-maker.
Her personal grief is basically suppressed by the relentless demands of duty.
She doesn't get the luxury of just being a grieving widow. She has to become the Swamini.
And taking on that title really sets the stage for a heartbreaking dynamic, because we see Rampiyari develop this intense desire for her house to be considered the most prosperous in the village.
It's an almost burning obsession for her.
Yeah. She wants the facade of the family's wealth to remain completely untouched by her husband's death.
Which isn't just about vanity, I should point out. The village is an audience. Social capital there is very closely tied to economic survival.
How does that work in practice?
Well, if the village senses the family is failing, credit might dry up, laborers might look elsewhere for work. Maintaining that image is actually a form of defensive survival.
But the hidden cost of maintaining that image is staggering.
Yeah.
And it falls entirely on her.
She bleeds herself dry.
She really does. She secretly and methodically starts parting with her own jewelry. Whenever money is needed, her jewelry just slips out of her hands, never to return.
And money is always needed on a farm.
Always. The story outlines this constant drain. Money for house repairs, buying a new pair of bullocks, customary gifts for relatives, medicine for the sick.
Every single time they fall short, she sells her own assets to make up the difference.
Right. And for a woman in this setting, that jewelry is everything, isn't it?
It really is. It's often given to her at her wedding, and it's her street hand. It is essentially her only financial safety net in a world where she doesn't hold property titles.
She's completely dismantling her own security.
Piece by piece.
Which is wild because the rest of the family, her sister-in-law Dulari and brother-in-law Mathura, they also have jewelry and assets.
Yes, they do.
But Rampiyari absolutely refuses to touch their wealth. She isolates herself financially.
And her stated reasoning is fascinating. She says they still have their lives ahead of them. She calls it their eating and drinking days.
Because her own husband is dead, she views her life as over.
Essentially, yes, in terms of personal fulfillment. So she believes they shouldn't be dragged into this financial mess.
But I have to ask, is it really just about protecting them?
Not entirely, and this is where the psychology gets really interesting. Rampiyari's self-sacrifice is fundamentally tied to maintaining her authority.
Ah, keeping the power.
Exactly. By taking on all the financial bleeding herself, she cements her untouchable status as the self-sacrificing Swamini. If she used Dulari's jewelry, she'd be indebted to her.
They would have a say in how things are run.
Right. By using only her own wealth, she remains the absolute unquestioned benefactor. It's self-destructive, but it gives her total control.
She is basically buying her authority with every piece of silver she pawns.
It's a powerful defense mechanism.
It is, but that absolute need to maintain the facade of a prosperous family leads to a massive clash over how they present themselves to the world.
The birth of the nephew.
Yes. Dulari gives birth to a son, which is a huge, joyous occasion. Rampiyari immediately proposes celebrating the birth with great pomp and show.
She wants everyone to see how well the family is doing.
But Shivdas, the aging patriarch, has a very different reaction. He strongly opposes the grand celebration.
He's looking at the actual ledger.
Exactly. He argues it's useless and that they should save the money for the boy's future engagement and wedding. Pragmatism over pride.
It's a classic contradiction. He is focused on practical, long-term survival, but Rampiyari is fiercely protecting their social capital.
She is so defiant here. She tells him, "How can you say that, Dada? If we don't celebrate the firstborn son, when will we?" She is terrified of what the world will say.
And what does she do to solve it?
She boldly tells her father-in-law that she won't ask him for anything. She will manage the arrangements and the expenses entirely herself.
Which perfectly illustrates her total commitment to her role as the household's protector. She will drain herself completely just to ensure the family's name remains elevated.
She is the Swamini, and the Swamini throws a feast.
Regardless of the personal cost.
Exactly. But, that iron grip she has on the family's image can only last so long before the real world creeps in.
The external social changes are inevitable.
And we see that happen through her brother-in-law, Mathura. He comes to Rampiyari with this shocking proposal.
He wants to change their entire way of life.
He does. He points out that despite farming for so long, they haven't achieved anything. They are just grinding away.
It's a frustration that echoes a massive historical shift. The agrarian lifestyle was starting to look like a dead end to the younger generation.
Mathura specifically says there is a school in the village now, and he wants his boys to be educated.
He wants to break the joint family structure.
Literally. He refuses to tie his children to the grindstone of farming, fearing it will ruin their lives.
To understand how threatening this is, you have to realize that a farm requires able-bodied workers. Sending boys to school removes their labor.
It changes the whole dynamic.
Right. And education promotes individual advancement. The joint family survives on collective sacrifice, which Rampiyari embodies.
But Mathura wants an individual future for his kids.
Exactly. It's the classic clash between the traditional agrarian mindset and the emerging modern desire for individual progress.
And Rampiyari is left completely speechless by this. You can feel her dismay. After all her quiet sacrifices to keep them united, this desire for education threatens to break everything apart.
It shows that no matter how hard she tries to hold the pieces together, the external world is moving on.
It makes her situation feel so tragic. But Premchand doesn't just leave her as this strict, controlling figure.
No, he gives us a beautifully contrasting scene late at night.
Yes, the encounter with Joku the laborer, it's so touching. Rampiyari is still awake late at night, and she sees Joku washing his face and preparing to cook.
He's just finished a grueling day in the fields.
Right. And they strike up a conversation. Rampiyari asks him why he doesn't just get engaged or married.
And his response is just a stark look at reality.
It really is.
Yeah.
Joku laughs at the idea. He explains he eats 1.25 seers of food per meal. That's 2.5 seers a day.
Which, to put that in perspective, is over 5 pounds of solid food a day just to sustain his manual labor.
It's a massive amount. He tells her he can barely feed himself, so how could he feed a wife? And he explains his cooking method. Just mixing flour into 2 thick flatbreads and baking them on cow dung cakes.
It's the bare minimum of survival. No comfort at all.
Hearing this, Rampiyari offers him this incredible grace. She tells him he can eat from her kitchen. She phrases it like she just wants to see how much he actually eats, but she's offering to feed him.
Taking on yet another burden.
Yes. But Joku is thrilled, yet humbly declines. He tells her she is already too tired from cooking for everyone, and he doesn't want to burden her.
That interaction is so vital to understanding Rampiyari.
Why is that?
Because it proves that her title of Swamini isn't just about managing her in-laws or showing off to the village. Her sense of responsibility extends to the absolute poorest laborers working for them.
Despite her own exhaustion and hidden financial ruin.
Exactly. She retains this deep, nurturing compassion. It really finalizes her transformation into the true matriarch of the estate.
It really does. It shows how she pours her entire being into the survival, prestige, and care of this household.
Burning her own assets to keep them all warm.
That is the perfect way to summarize it. Premchand Swamini truly is a masterclass in character study.
It is, but I do want to leave our listeners with a final, lingering thought to mull over.
Oh, please do.
We admire Rampiyari's incredible nobility and sacrifice, but consider this. Could her obsession with controlling the family's prestige and giving away her own wealth actually be a trauma response?
Wow.
Was her complete devotion to the household's image the only way she could find control in a life where fate had just robbed her of her husband?
That is such a provocative angle to view this from. Seeking control in the chaos of grief. I love that.
It definitely changes how you read her sacrifices.
It really does. Well, thank you so much for breaking this down with me today.
Yeah.
And to you listening, thank you for joining this deep dive.
It's been a great conversation.
If you enjoyed this, please remember to humbly subscribe to the Simplifying Summary YouTube channel. Smash that like button and drop a comment below with your thoughts on Rampiyari's choices. Was it pure nobility or a trauma response? Let us know. We'll catch you on the next one.